What is a fallacy? Can you tell me what a fallacy is? Jackie. I said I wouldn't debate the ladies, but we got a lady. Go for it.
Hey, man.
Hey.
I know that there are several people that are trying to come into this space to engage with you. You just quote tweeted me, and I'm going to take the message as far as like personality assaults. But some of my guy friends would like to come in and speak with you in a healthy and helpful manner.
Sure.
Can you please unblock a few of them?
Well, it depends on who they are. Who it is? Who is it?
Well, you said that there were no Catholics willing to engage you, then called me a drunk mom.
No, I made a joke calling you a wine mom. It was a joke.
Okay, well, some of my guy friends would like to be able to come speak. I know Wagner's blocked. I know Tom.
Okay, I just hold on. I just unblocked Wagner and offered him to come in, and he declined.
Okay, well, I just think that in good faith, maybe, less character assassinations would be great.
Okay, you understand that your whole crew, hundreds of people, have called me every name in the book in the last 2 days, and I don't care. And I make one wine mom joke to you, and now you got to have a bunch of white knights come in and defend you.
Again, that's not necessary, but I just think it would be in good faith if you want to have an open dialogue.
It's an open forum.
People. Okay,
that's why you're here.
Unblock some people. That would be great.
Unblock who? Because I unblocked Pine Suck or whatever his name is. He can come in here. So where's all the guy friends? Again, Wagner declined to come in here. Okay, she left. If you're of this party of the guy friends, you're welcome to hop on. Is this you, or Will? Are you one of these people? You notice how they've called me every name in the book for days on end, and I make one wine mom joke, and they're all ready to pounce? I mean, this is so ridiculous. Go ahead, Will. Unmute.
Yeah, I originally was going to come up here to have a conversation specifically about the Rublev remark that you made, but
okay. I mean, you don't think that's true?
Well, I mean, the point that you're making, I mean, well, there is a circularity there, that an icon depicting an event which was an icon written by Christians, typologically inferring Trinitarianism upon an event that happened in the Old Testament.
Oh, okay, so you don't think the Old Testament teaches that?
Well, I mean, it's quite. But also, it's also not clear from the manuscript basis. Just looking at the Johannine epistles, there are various indications that.
Looking at what epistles?
Manuscript you're handling.
At what? Slow down, dude.
On the Johannine epistles, it's clear from.
Uranine? What are you talking about?
The Johannine epistles.
Oh, John. Mm-hmm.
Right. But, I mean, I was going to have that conversation with you, but I think that...
Okay, well, let's go to the Old Testament itself. Do you think that the Old Testament teaches... Oh, so you're not going to debate that?
Well, I'm not interested in having a debate about the substance of our faith when I think ad hominem attacks are being made in the way that you've just made towards Jackie, because I think it cheapens all of us. So.
Right, so you guys have called me every name in the book for 2 days straight, and I make one joke about a wine mom. I said the wine moms are welcome. And here you are, and so you want to deflect to that. Let's talk about the Old Testament. So look at this. This is what they do. Let's talk about the Old Testament. Does it teach the triad or not? Are you a Catholic? Oh, he left. This is Pine Sap because he wants to talk. Pine Sap, you want to talk about epistemology? I'd like to.
Hey, Jay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, let's go, man. How's it going?
Good. You want to talk about epistemology?
Sure. I mean, I'm more of an ecclesiology guy, to be honest. I can try covering epistemology, though.
Yeah, I just think that if classical foundationalist Thomistic epistemology fails, then the whole Roman Catholic system fails.
Now, explain what necessarily your view of our view is.
Well, for example, John Paul II in Fides et Ratio defines natural theology as reasoning about God without and in no way referencing divine revelation. So this is what led the Roman Catholic Church to dogmatize the idea, particularly that you what natural theology is precisely that, right? Reasoning about God without any reference to divine revelation. That seems to assume and presuppose that you're a foundationalist. I've never heard a Roman Catholic that's not a foundationalist. So that means that things like the peripatetic axiom, which Aquinas says he agrees with, or the idea in Aristotle that what is better known by us versus what is better known in itself from posterior analytics or prior analytics or physics, etc., that those are kind of self-evident axioms. That seems to me to be pretty uncontroversial or not even contentious in the Roman Catholic world.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I admittedly, I'll be fully honest with you. Like I said, I'm not much of a studier of epistemology. I kind of talk about its relation to ecclesiology a little bit, but I'm not too well versed yet with like what St. John Paul II or St. Thomas Aquinas wrote on that topic. I'm more about covering sort of the evidences for papal primacy or sort of how the early.
Fair enough, but I mean, you said evidences would go along with evidentialism. So in other words, wouldn't this point kind of go more fundamental than arguing the ecclesiology?
I suppose it would. I tend to just sort of try and look at history and look at, can Catholic beliefs, right? Can, say, Vatican I, for instance, be defended in the first century, the first century, but the first millennium? And, what evidences do we have from, say, the early church fathers, the early church writers, both Eastern and Western, that kind of support that view?
What do you think of the Chieti and Alexandria documents?
Well, I think those documents are not, magisterial pronouncements, but even if I grant that they are, I think they're meant to be more conciliatory. I'm trying to look for the word.
Yeah, I know what you mean, towards the east.
Yeah. Written, right, yeah. Not meant really to be like an apologetical writing that sort of defends our position, but more so a document that is trying to sort of come to a meeting in the middle, if you will, in order to establish sort of a more ecumenical dialogue.
No, I think that is I think you're absolutely correct. That's what those documents are saying. I guess I'm just curious, like, even if they're not magisterial, like, they still have papal approval. And if they are essentially approved by the Vatican with being these official commissions, like if they're admitting things like Chieti does at the very bottom, that Rome didn't exercise universal primacy in the first millennium, like how is that not a denial of Vatican I?
Well, what I would say is I would go back to Father Silvestri Berry's The Church of Christ, where he talks about sort of the universal jurisdiction that the papacy has being a power that the Pope has always had, but not necessarily a power that always needs to be exercised.
So wouldn't that undercut the arguments that you guys make from Clement or from Honorius? Excuse me, not Honorius, from Celestine and others.
Not necessarily. The reason why I say that is because, the Pope really sort of, and I don't mean this in the way that Vatican I would anathematize, like, oh, he's just a supervisor or something like that, right? But in a manner of having this universal jurisdiction versus how he exercises it, the Pope doesn't need to be sort of an autocrat that takes away the role of the local bishop. Even remarked about by Blessed Pius IX around his papacy and around Vatican I, especially after the German bishops, this is in Dr. Ed Shinsky's work on the papacy, the German bishops sent him a document or a pronouncement about how Vatican I did not essentially create like what St. Gregory the Great would have, remarked as the universal bishop, this idea that like all bishops are not somehow like true successors of the apostles. They don't have their own sort of...
Yeah, I'm aware of what you're talking about, and I have the Shinsky, I have the Shinsky book here with me, but what I'm getting at, though, is that you said that it need not be exercised. But the document actually says that the Roman bishop did not exercise canonical authority over the churches of the East. But you're saying that, well, my distinction there would be that it's a power, but it's not necessarily exercised. So wait a minute, was it exercised in the first millennium, or was it a power he had and he didn't exercise?
I think there might be some confusion over what I was saying. I was not saying that he didn't exercise it at all. I was just saying it's not a power that he needed to necessarily always exercise. Unless it was absolutely necessary to. Because the normal function of, say, a patriarch or a local bishop is that, of course, he'd be controlling his diocese, he'd be controlling his area of jurisdiction. But,
so this papally approved document is incorrect?
Well, I mean, I'd have to see the specific passage that
I mean,
you're
it's on
citing
the screen right here. You haven't read Chieti?
I mean, I've glanced over it. I'm not.
I mean, this
seeing
is
on
a
the
famous
top-
passage that multiple, even PhD Roman Catholics at the time when it came out, admitted that this really undoes Vatican I.
I highly doubt that, and I think quite a bit of people have actually written quite the opposite.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like I said,
so okay, but here's the thing about right, and that's fair.
Not meant to be
That's fair.
apologetic.
That's fair. No, I understand that, but whether this document is apologetic or ecumenist in its motivation really says nothing about whether or not it's an error that's pretty significant if this is a paperly approved commission. But the reason I always go to epistemology at this point in the discussion is that you said, well, it's not really a magisterial document. I don't really have to put that into the tier or the bins of, necessary conscience-binding documents or whatever. How, as a Roman Catholic, do you sort out between all the different documents, papal teachings, and so forth? How do you know that you're putting them in the right bins if you've got extraordinary magisterium, universal ordinary magisterium, and ordinary teaching? How, as an individual Roman Catholic, do you know that you're actually interpreting this mass of documents correctly?
Well, I know that I'm interpreting them correctly based on the authority that they're issued with. I mean, Dr. John Joy writes pretty extensively about when certain.
So hold on, wait a minute. So is Dr. John Joy infallible?
Didn't say that he was.
Okay,
but he does
so you're
cite
going
from
so
other
to get
documents.
the criterion, you go into a fallible source.
I don't think it's a fallible source necessarily.
Well,
because
Dr.
what
Joy
he's
is now infallible?
is
Dr.
a
Joy is infallible?
hermeneutic of understanding
Is Dr.
how
Joy infallible?
God-
Is this book infallible?
I never said that it was, my friend.
Oh, so he's not an infallible source. So the very criteria is derived from a non-infallible source?
I mean, the argument that you're trying to make is essentially if I'm using any book to sort of have an understanding of
No,
how
it's
the
actually an
magisterium functions
epistemic
or
argument.
operates or what have you, contradicts the view of the church.
No,
but then I could
no,
easily
it's
say
not.
the
It's
same
not.
thing
I'm not
about
arguing it
the
contradicts the
position.
church. No, I'm arguing that you don't have a consistent epistemic principle to know clearly and from which source you're deriving the dogmas and putting them in the right bins, because you have a giant mass of tens of thousands of pages potentially, right, that would count as part of, quote, Catholic teaching. And so you're saying that, well, I go to Dr. Bill Joy or whatever his name is to pull out these principles, but his book is fallible. So wait a minute. So where's the infallible list of the infallible dogmas?
The infallible list of the infallible dogmas, again, comes from the level at which these documents.
Oh, so there's not a list.
Binding this is on the
So there's not a
conscience of
list.
Catholics.
There's not a list.
All Dr.
So there's
John
not a
Joy
list?
says is here are the signs.
Yeah, so you have three
of the
criteria,
magisterial
and then you're like a
documents.
Protestant.
Criteria that
Yeah,
sets
you have
up-
three criteria from a fallible book, and then you're like a Protestant going through tens of thousands of pages to put it in the right bin.
Bad argument, my friend. He's
It's not a bad argument. It's a devastating argument to your position because you don't know
He's drawing
epistemology.
it from documents like Donum Veritatis. Or
It
what
doesn't
have you.
matter. So how do you know that he drew them from the right documents? That's begging the question. That's circular. You admitted he's fallible.
What you're trying to argue suddenly is that I, as a Catholic, have to turn off my brain
No,
when I understand.
you don't have a consistent
Doesn't make
epistemology.
sense.
No, the argument is that you don't have a consistent epistemology, and you just proved it.
What are you even saying right now?
Yeah,
big
exactly.
dog?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So you see how he got mad once he got cornered?
Oh yeah, I'm the mad one. Mr.
Yeah. You
Man.
said, "What am I even saying, bad guy?" And now you're going to the personal attacks.
Personal attacks, big dog. You just keep interrupting and stuff like
No,
that.
you're not. You're not answering the question because you got caught in a basic circular fallacy about your epistemology.
All I said is that Dr. John Joy references
Is his book infallible?
what these documents talk
Is
about.
his book infallible? Is it an infallible source? You went to a fallible source.
That's not even what I'm saying, my
It is
friend.
what you're saying. It's what I'm saying because you admitted the book is fallible. You admitted the book is fallible. You admitted the book is fallible, so you're just begging the question.
So let me guess. If I read Irenaeus, if I read Cyprian in another...
It doesn't matter because you don't have a coherent epistemology.
That doesn't make it a part of our faith. Is
It
that
doesn't
what you're
matter. You don't have a coherent epistemology is the point.
saying? Okay, you're just kind of screaming in the void at this point.
Yeah, I'm screaming in the
incoherent
void.
about it?
You went. Do you want me to explain it to you for the fourth time? Do you want me to explain it for the fourth time to you?
Science book that's a fallible book, but it can say something true.
Yeah, that's begging the question, because it's you don't know that you have the right things in the book that are infallible. That's the point.
But here's the thing. Even if I was to make an error as a Catholic, it would not be a damnable error, because that...
You don't even know that. Maybe it is. Right? That's begging the question. You're just assuming that. What's your... because you don't have an epistemic criteria. You don't have an epistemic criteria that's consistent. You don't have an epistemic criteria that's consistent. That's the point. Here he goes. Here he goes to the personal attacks. Look at this. You were barely a Catholic. You were barely a Catholic. Basic attacks when he melts.
Man, dude. You are just like an angry little man.
Yeah, I'm an angry little man. He got cornered. Everybody saw his dumb circular argument. And then he immediately goes to the personal attacks. Did I say anything about him personally? I kept calling him back to the basic point. And he starts calling me an angry little man. No, you guys are scumbags. Straight up. Dishonest cults. You're dishonest cult members. Uh-oh. Jackie wants to come back. What's up? One Alexandrian heretical action.
Hey, Jay. I'm here as the group secretary again. I think that you might have accidentally removed Peter from the space.
No, I intentionally removed him.
What the follow-up question was the source of interpretation. Do you have an answer for that?
So wait a minute. You think that as a Roman Catholic, you can't, or as anybody else, that you can't go and read the documents from the ecumenical councils? I have to go to another interpreter?
I'm not here to debate on his behalf, but I'll relay the message from the Protestant. That was his question.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.